Hello interwebs, welcome to Let's Fix Computers. This is a Dell UP3216Q monitor. It's a 32-inch 4K monitor. And unfortunately, the client was doing a firmware update on this. He owns a couple of these and he was doing firmware updates and his power failed while doing the firmware update on this screen, which rendered it stone dead. Basically, it does not turn on. You push the power button and nothing happens. It's kill. So what we're going to do on this is we're going to reflash the firmware chip in it, which will actually be an SPI flash chip. It's essentially a BIOS chip on the monitor, basically. This is a bit of a mad lad repair that I'm not really sure is going to work or not, but we're going to try, basically, because there's no reason why it might fail. We have the firmware file that is supposed to be on the monitor, and somewhere in here there will be a flash chip that the firmware is supposed to go on. So theoretically, if we get that chip out, we reprogram it in my flash programmer, and we should be laughing. So let's start taking this thing apart. Now, as luck would have it, I've got two of these on hand. I've got this one, the broken one, and I have another one that is in full working order. So if we have any issues with the downloaded firmware file, because the firmware file itself is only 768K, and that's quite small. That file size isn't very large, so that's not a full entire binary file for the whole chip, which I would expect to be about like 2 megabytes or something like that. So I don't know if that file that we've got, it's a DAT file, not a binary file, should be the same thing, but who knows? The point is that we can always take apart the good monitor and dump the firmware off of the chip from that one. I'm hoping we won't need to though. Anyway, let's open this thing up. So to get into this monitor, we need to take the front bezel off, and then we're going to essentially just take everything out from inside. There are some screws on the bottom of it. If I just come up here, we have got some screws around here, but I believe that these are just trim screws, and I don't think these actually need to come out to disassemble the screen. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to prop the monitor upright. It's going to be hard to really show you what I'm doing, so you might have to use your imagination, but I'm going to get my prying tool and I'm just going to pry between the front bezel and the outer bezel. So let's just get in there and just gently tweak that. I'm just having a look. There we go, that's what I wanted. So as you can see, I've just popped that bezel out there. And so we're going to go around the screen doing that basically. And I'm going to do the whole thing out of focus, I think. Okay, it's time to lay this down, I think. Ooh. It's times like this where it pays to keep your desk clear so you can suddenly put a big old thing like this on it. So as a friendly reminder, because people don't talk about prying techniques and stuff like that very often, what I'm doing here, so we're going between the bezel, inner and outer bezel. Now what I'm doing, if I pushed the prying tool that direction, in the direction of my finger, we would just be ripping the front bezel off. We'd just be pulling it away. And that will snap the clips. You'll just snap the plastic clips off. So that's not what we want to do. What I'm doing instead is I'm going to pry in this direction. And what that is achieving is that we're pushing the front bezel toward the center of the screen. So we're applying a force that does that. And what that is going to do is it's going to press the clips downwards away from the lugs that they're clipped onto. And that's why we get that nice satisfying clunk as it pops off of the lug. And you can see there's one of the holes that's popped off, and we're popping those off intact. We're not snapping them. So that's the big secret to opening stuff up, is all in the technique. You've got to find what direction to pry in. And the trick is just being able to figure out what direction it wants to go in. And when you get it right, stuff just pops out. Right, we're just stuck at the power button now. Ugh. Bing. There we go. Okay, right. We've got some flexes because we've got touch-sensitive buttons down here. We've got the power button and some capacitive touch-sensitive buttons down here. So we're going to lift the front bezel off and we're going to flip it right over. And I'm going to have to swing the camera out the way. There we go. Right, are those guys hotbarred? Yeah, they are, because of course they are. Okay. Right, now I need to go back a bit because I've just realised that I needed to remove some screws from the back first. Let's just settle that down. Stand it upright. And I definitely need to remove some bolts from the back. There we go. So those guys would have been going through the plastic and into the back of the screen, which would prevent us from doing the next part. Ugh. Okay. So I'm going to turn this over so the bezel goes in the other direction, because I don't have very much space over here, but I do have lots of space in that direction. So the next thing I need to do is just lift the whole shooting match out of the case, basically. So I'm just going to get the prying tool under there and lift. Oop, dropped it. Should I go from the... I think I should go from the top, actually, because I've got to steer around ports in the back. There we go. Okay, you guys can't see what I'm doing. Hold on. There we go. So I've got my hands under this panel, and we're just going to lift the whole thing out. Right, what's holding on under here? Various things. Can I just set that down? I can. Right. So there's a few things in the back that are coming with us. Ugh. Can those lift? I'm not sure. Oh God. Right. I'm going to disconnect some things and then I'll show you what I disconnected. Whew, okay. So as you can see, we just lifted the whole screen out from the back casing. And in the back here, we had these two modules here, which is whatever that is, and a card reader. And these were on ribbon cables into the back of the panel. So I put my hand under there and just disconnected those ribbon cables. Whew, okay. Got to figure out where those actually fit back in. Oh, that came from over there. Okay, that's fine. Okay, right, and I'm going to slide everything along. And I'm going to lay it down on the front bezel. Right, so just for a moment, I'm just laying it on the front bezel. I'm supporting it just so nothing is poking against the LCD itself, because that would be a disaster. This is all a little bit hairy. If I was more practiced with this exact model of monitor, I could probably make this look a lot slicker. But when you're a variety tech like I am, you don't really specialize in anything. You just figure it all out. Right, let's disconnect that ribbon. That disconnects all the front panel stuff. Just peel that back. Alright, so now the front buttons are free. Pick up the panel again. Get off. Get off. Get off. Okay. Oh. Ooh. This is fine. Oh. Oh. Whew. All right. Right, that got a little bit sketchy, but we got there in the end. There was probably a better way of doing that. However, trying to take stuff apart while staying within a camera shot is very difficult. So if it looks like I'm making a meal of something, it's probably because I'm trying to stay in camera shot. Okay, what's next? Right, here's where we need to get into now. So there will be 3 panels going on in here. Under here is the main control board, which is where we want to get to. There's also going to be a power board, which is probably over here. There's the power input, so the power board will be about there. All of the display inputs are like here. And then behind here, I can see we've got a controller board for the panel itself. So let's start taking stuff out. This is loose. Okay, there's our LCD board. We don't need this thing, so I'm going to leave that alone. I do want to get under here, though. So I'll take out a screw here. Okay, right, who's coming off? Right, that's lifted up the entire assembly and the boards are coming with it, so we need to disconnect some wires. Let's take that off. That's probably backlight power. And then we've got a display cable going up to the screen. There we go. Finally, we can take this board out. And there we go. There's our board. Right, let's get this under the camera. So what we want to do on this is somewhere on here, there will be a programmable chip, an EEPROM or a flash chip or something like that. These days they use SPI flash chips rather than EEPROMs, but it's kind of all the same. It's the same principle on all of them. It's just different iterations of the technology. So we need to have a look at this board and see if we can find what is effectively the BIOS chip for this monitor. So let's go in close. And there's lots of chips on this thing, and we're looking for SOP8 packages, SOP8, because that's typically what one of these chips will look like. So classic examples would be like this guy here, this guy here, this guy over here. These are the kind of things we're looking for. However, most of these are all power related. But if we have a look, this guy here, this one is right in amongst the main controller chips on this board. And while it's not labeled or anything as a, the BIOS chip, but the giveaway is if we zoom in real close to that guy and take a look at the writing on it, there we go. That is an MXIC MX25L1606E. So MXIC, that's microchip. So this is what we're looking for. This is the guy that we want to flash. So we're going to take this guy off the board and we're going to flash it with the updated, well, with the correct firmware. Right, let's fire up the quick and we will get this guy off the board. So it's worth noting that it's entirely possible to flash these chips in circuit. You can use a clamp that clamps onto the sides of it. However, I don't really like doing it that way because you don't know what else you're going to power up when you power up that chip. And I've tried it on an ATX motherboard where I've been practicing on ATX boards. And, you know, like when I powered up the BIOS chip, other diagnostic LEDs on the motherboard came on, and I'm like, oh, that's not what I want to happen. I just want to talk to the BIOS chip and nothing else. And yeah, it's absolutely possible. And I'm not an expert in this, and there's probably other people who do this all the time that would be like, that's absolutely fine. You don't need to worry about it. But I don't know, man. For me, it's really easy to just get a hot air station and just hot air the chip off the board. That's no issue for me because I've got the equipment for it. So I would much rather do that personally. Makes me feel more comfortable that way. Right, let's get this thing in a programmer. So the programmer I'm going to use for this is this RTF809F serial programmer, which this is only my second time using this thing. I haven't made a video about it yet. I'm still practicing with it, but I wanted to get a more fancy one. The previous programmer you guys have seen me use is the EZP2019, which is the cheap and cheerful eBay special. And I've had successes with this thing. It's a really cheap entry into the programming thing. This guy was a bit more expensive. I think it was about 50 or 60 pounds, which is not big money, but it's enough that you actually have to commit to buying equipment with it. Whereas the EZP2019, this thing is like 15 pounds with all the accessories. You know, it costs nothing. However, this guy is a lot more capable and also has vastly superior software. So this is what I'm going to be using. The interesting part about this one is that not only is it significantly faster, but it's more intelligent. It checks pin connections and things like that. But as I say, I'll make a video about this guy at some point soon and tell you more details about why it's better than the EZP2019 and what things you should be interested in looking out for with EEPROM programmers. Right, can we Smart ID that? Oh, look at that. That's what you're paying for with this thing. Beautiful. Auto-detected. Okay, right. Read. Look at how fast that is. Right, chip is empty. All are OXFF. Okay, well, that's not a good start. Fine. Buffer area is empty. Click continue to save as an empty file. No, we'll just cancel that. Okay. Fine. So, I just realized you guys couldn't see those status messages. I need to adjust my capture for this. However, I read it out as I saw it. So, okay, so the software is telling me that the chip is empty. So that, I guess, would make sense if we lost power. I was expecting to find some garbage data in there, but fine. Let's open the DAT file I've got. So I'm going to load the DAT file that was downloaded from the Dell website. So as you can see, we've loaded up a dump that I've got here that's sitting in another folder, but whatever. Right, and we are going to write that back. Okay, erase successful, write successful, done. Okay, so apparently we are WinRAR. And did we verify? We also verified. Good. Okay, so that should be fine. So now I'm going to do a read. And I'm just going to see if it returns that there is data. Yeah, there we go. There is data and it's offering to save it. So I'm not going to save that because it's exactly the same as what's in the DAT file. However, the chip was apparently empty. We've written data to it and now it's not empty anymore. Good. Okay. Right, that is done. So we're going to put that back on the board and we'll put the thing back together again, or just enough to power it on, and we'll see if it powers on. So I forgot to turn it on for you guys on camera to show you what it was doing. However, the long and the short of it is pressing the power button did nothing. It was stone dead. No signs of life, just stone dead. So if it does anything at all, then that means we're getting somewhere. And obviously, if we see the Dell logo appear on the actual LCD panel, it means we win. So that's what we're looking for. Let's get this guy back on the board. There we go. And that guy should be all good to go. Let's see how we did. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, that's plugged in. So now theoretically, if I give the screen power, it should turn on. Whew. There it was. There it was. Yeah. Everything looks fine. Everything looks fine. Obviously, we'll show it with a full picture on in a minute, but that's good enough to assemble. Part of me is kind of surprised it works, you know? But there's no reason why it wouldn't work. This is the thing about repair, is just so often you're just like, this seems really difficult. There's no way this is going to work. But sometimes you've got to trust the method. Fine. Okay, so let's partially disassemble again. Okay, that's in place. Now I'm going to flip it over again. So I'm going to lift up the front and just scooch my hands up to the middle so I can support the weight of the screen. Now I can lift the whole thing up, and over we go. Okay, everything's in there. Okay, let's snap the bezel down into place. Last piece of the puzzle. Let's just make sure we get a picture, and we need to select our HDMI. Bam. Yeah, there we go. Right, and can we have 4K? Display resolution 3480 by 2160. That's scaled. Let's turn off scaling for a laugh. There we go. 4K. And that's it, we're finished. That was a mini adventure. I'm very happy with that. I was, if I seemed a bit inanimated during this video, it's because I was doing pretty much this entire job going, I really don't think this is going to work. And I agreed to the job because the actual client drove here from London today. And this is just a one-day wonder job. And I was like, this is a bad idea. Someone's just driven a long way to get this done, and I don't know if I can do it. However, we have successfully fixed this monitor, and he's now driving home with 2 working monitors. So I'm very happy. And I think he's going to be as well when he comes back in shortly at any moment. So thank you very much for watching, everyone. As always, my support links are down in the description below for my Twitter, my Patreon, and my Discord. Or stick around for the end card. And thanks a lot. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!